I never thought I'd become the kind of man who talks to ghosts, or the kind who creates them. But here I am, 4 years after it all began, sitting alone on the deck of my old sailboat, as the San Francisco Bay laps quietly against the hull, like it's whispering secrets I wish I could forget. The fog rolls in thick tonight, the kind that swallows sound and light, and makes you question whether the world outside your little wooden world even exists anymore. My hands tremble slightly as I grip the railing, the salt-crusted wood cold and rough under my palms. I can still smell her perfume sometimes, faint and cloying, mixed with the brine of the sea. Julia Gray, the woman whose ghost told me exactly who murdered her, me. It started 4 years ago when I was still new to the Bay Area, fresh from New York with more stubborn pride than sense. My family had money, old money that could have bought me an easy life, but I refused. I wanted to prove I could stand on my own. That stubbornness led me to this 30-foot sailboat, weathered and in need of love, with a faded blue stripe running along its side, like a scar from some forgotten battle. My sister called it the worst decision of my life. She was probably right. But the first time I stepped aboard, felt the gentle rock beneath my feet, and smelled the mix of varnish, salt, and old canvas. I knew I was home. I've lived here ever since, paying next to nothing in rent for a slip-and-a-half, forgotten marina, where the fog never seems to lift completely. Back then, the news of Julia Gray's disappearance barely registered at first. She was 22, vibrant, a nurse's aide in the children's cancer ward at a hospital across the bay. They said she went missing after a late shift. No body, no clues. Just an empty car in a parking lot and a community in shock. I was too busy learning to sail to pay much attention. My first outing was a disaster. The wind howled unexpectedly, the engine sputtered, and I nearly slammed into the jagged rocks lining the marina entrance. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat, the taste of fear metallic on my tongue. But somehow, the wind shifted at the last second, pushing me out into open water. It felt like a sign, like the sea itself was giving me a second chance over the next months. I got better. I learned the rhythms of the tide, the way the boat creaked in protest during strong gusts, the salty spray that stung my eyes and left my skin sticky. Sometimes I'd hit a jam, a sudden squall or a mechanical failure, and I'd sit there, hands white, knuckled on the wheel, breathing deep and praying the wind would carry me home. It always did. The wind was always on my side, until the night it brought her. The storm that night was unlike anything I'd seen. Even the breakwater couldn't fully protect the marina. Waves crashed over the wall, dark and angry, slamming against the hull with rhythmic thuds that vibrated through my bones. The wind howled like a living thing, rattling the hatch and sending spray hissing against the windows. I drank 2 beers, hoping the dull buzz would let me sleep through it. Somehow it worked. For a while, I woke to a deeper cold. Not just the damp chill of the storm seeping through the cracks, but something unnatural. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest. My breath came out in visible puffs, even though the small heater was still humming. The boat rocked violently, but there was another motion subtle. Inside footsteps. No, just the sense of presence. I swung my legs off the narrow bunk, my bare feet hitting the cool wooden floor. The single lamp I always left on cast long, flickering shadows down the passageway toward the main cabin. That's when I saw her. A figure stood silhouetted in the dim light near the open hatch. Dark hair whipped wildly in the wind that poured in from outside. Her white dress clung to her frame, glowing faintly, almost ethereally against the storm's fury. I couldn't see her face clearly, just the outline, the the way she stood perfectly still amid the chaos. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body froze. The cold deepened, crawling up my legs like icy fingers. I could smell it then, a faint, sweet perfume mixed with something rotten, like flowers left too long in water. I slammed my bedroom door shut and pressed my back against it, breathing hard. The rest of the night was a blur of terror and exhaustion. Every creak of the boat made me flinch. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. When morning finally came, gray and exhausted, I opened the door. She was gone. The hatch was closed, but the chill lingered in my bones for hours. I told myself it was a dream, stress, too much isolation on the water, but she came back the next night, and the night after that, 4 nights in total. Each time, she stood there in the passageway, silent, watching. I tried everything. Salt circles around the boat that dissolved in the spray. A cheap cross hung on the hatch that swung mockingly in the breeze. Nothing worked. I even spoke to her once, my voice cracking in the darkness. "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer. Just the wind and the faint rustle of her dress. It seemed to anger her more. Her posture stiffened. The air grew heavier. After that, I stopped trying. Then came the night that changed everything. I woke as usual to her presence, heart hammering. I got up and took a cautious step closer, desperate for answers. My elbow brushed the lamp switch accidentally. Click, complete blackness swallowed the cabin. For a split second, nothing. Then her scream tore through the air, raw piercing filled with centuries of drowning terror. It wasn't human. It vibrated in my skull, made my teeth ache. I fumbled desperately for the switch, fingers slipping on the cold metal. When light flooded back, she was gone. I sat at the small kitchen table, hands shaking as I cracked open a beer. The foam spilled over, cold and bitter. It made sense now. She feared the dark, the absolute dark, the kind where light never returns. I finished the beer and made a decision. From then on, every night, I turned off all lights before bed, and just like that, she stopped coming inside. That first full night of real sleep in weeks felt like rebirth. I woke smiling, the sun filtering through the portholes, warming my face. I called in sick to my residency at the nearby hospital. I deserved this, the bay called to me. I motored out slowly, the engine purring beneath me, and found a quiet spot far from shore. Dropping both anchors, I settled in with my fishing rod, the water below a deep, impenetrable blue. That's when the memories flooded back. Julia Gray. The name echoed in my mind as I stared into the depths. I knew this spot. I had been here before, years earlier, under very different circumstances. The water here was deep, cold, unforgiving, perfect for hiding something or someone. I swore I could see a faint shape down there, drifting in the current. Her shape, Julia Gray's ghost, had visited me because I was the one who put her there. Let me take you back further, before the boat. Before the bay, back to New York, where my life first intersected with hers in the most ordinary, fateful way. I was in my first year of surgical residency. The hours were brutal, 60 to 80 a week, sometimes more. Sleep was a luxury, meals grabbed between surgeries, social life non-existent. The hospital atrium became my rare sanctuary for lunch. One sunny Tuesday, I sat there with a mediocre sandwich, exhausted when she approached. "Mind if I join you?" Julia Gray was impossible to ignore. Tall with striking features, dark hair that caught the light, and a smile that promised mischief and warmth in equal measure. She worked as a nurse's aide, mostly in pediatrics oncology. The kids adored her. She had this effortless way of making them laugh, even the ones pale and hooked up to machines. I said yes, of course. We talked for 2 hours. She was funny, sharp, flirty. By the end, I had her number and a date planned. Our first real date was magic. We wandered the city, spontaneous and free. Laughter came easily. Her hand in mine felt warm, alive. But there were cracks even then. Small things I ignored. The way her eyes lingered too long on certain people. The sudden shifts in mood. I had Casey then. My golden retriever, loyal and energetic, with the softest fur and the happiest bark. He was my anchor after long shifts. When I brought Julia to my apartment to walk him, Casey froze. He backed away into the kitchen, tail tucked, a low whine escaping. He never did that with anyone. Julia smiled sweetly. Maybe he doesn't like strangers. I'll wait outside. I should have listened to him. Dogs know. The second date was our last happy one. A hike in the mountains. The view was breathtaking. But at the edge of a sheer drop, Julia stepped forward, toes over the void. If I jump, you jump, right? Her voice was playful, but her eyes were testing. I yanked her back, heart racing. She laughed it off, kissed me, said we were meant to be. I drove her home in silence, unease growing. Then the package arrived from my mom, a squeaky toy and rawhide bone for Casey. I gave it to him happily. Hours later, he was vomiting, crying in pain. I rushed him to the emergency vet. 2 hours of agony, and he was gone. Rat poison. My mom denied sending anything. The truth hit like a gut punch, Julia. Work the next day was hell. I kept my head down. Then the meeting. Harassment charges. Assault. Julia showed up with bruises. She put there herself, smiling at me as I was suspended. My career, my life, crumbling. No proof against her word and her face full of lies. I thought that was the end, but she wasn't done. Kelly came into my life later after I moved to start over. Kind, genuine Kelly. We were happy. Until she disappeared on the way to the marina, found beaten in an abandoned lot. Julia's work, I knew it. The call came, I played along, lured her out. We're meant to be together. She came, we sailed, dinner, wine. She drugged me, but I had planned better. The tables turned. I need to slow down and paint this properly, because the horror wasn't just in the killing. It was in the slow unraveling. After the ghost stopped visiting, the days blurred. I fished, sailed, tried to forget. But at night, the whispers started. Not from outside, but inside my head, Julia's voice, faint at first. You liked me once, Scott. I'd wake sweating, the boat rocking gently, the water lapping like fingers tapping on the hull. I'd check every lock, every shadow. The marina at night is a lonely place. Distant buoys clanging, foghorns low and mournful, the occasional splash that could be a fish or something else. I started researching her. Old news articles, interviews with colleagues. Everyone said she was perfect. But one nurse mentioned odd behavior around certain patients. Clara, the serious 8-year-old, had once told me Julia wasn't nice. Kids and dogs see what we ignore. Flashbacks haunted me more than the ghost Casey's final whimpers. The way his body went still in my arms. Kelly's laugh cut short. The rage built slowly, a cold fire. I planned meticulously. No witnesses. The deep water. When she finally stood at the marina gate that night, phone to her ear, I let her in. Her hug was tight, desperate. We sailed into the delta as the sun set, painting the water blood. Red. Dinner was perfect fillet, potatoes, red wine. Her hand in mine felt wrong now, like holding a snake. The drug took hold slowly. My vision blurred, limbs heavy. She smiled triumphantly. I can't trust you anymore, Scott, but I'll make it quick. I forced the words out. Did you really think you could kill my dog, my girlfriend, and I'd let it go? Her face twisted in betrayal as the sedative I'd slipped her earlier hit fully. She slumped. When I woke, she was crawling for a knife. I hit her with the flashlight, hard. The sound was sickening, meaty. Then the chains, the concrete block on the edge. She woke to see it all. Sleep well, Julia. The kick. The splash. The chains dragging her down. Bubbles. Silence. The water closed over her like it had been waiting. But that wasn't the end. Not really. Weeks later, the whispers returned stronger. I'm still here, Scott, in the dark with you. I feel her sometimes, cold breath on my neck when the fog is thick. The boat rocks when it shouldn't. And sometimes, when I look into the water at that exact spot, I see two shapes drifting. Now, one is hers. The other might be me, one day. I know who murdered Julia Gray, her ghost told me. It was me, and I'd do it again.